abduction is no longer just a story created in our science fiction. More and more psychiatric professionals refuse to discount the tales they hear from victims describing hostile encounters with aliens. The details of most abductees are striking in their similarity.
I mean, this is terror. You're being kidnapped. You don't know what's going to happen.
I thought, this is it. I'm going to die of a heart attack or something because it was not human.
Transported to an alien craft, some report being subjected to horrific experiments and invasive probes.
I hate what they do to me. I hate what they do to my mind. I hate what they do to my body.
And it was not a fun experience. This is not something I would wish on anybody.
But are the aggressive tactics that accompany most UFO encounters drowning out a more important message?
There have been polls conducted, Gallup polls, one poll called the Roper poll, where the results were extrapolated and sent to over 150,000 American GPs, medical practitioners, that basically said it's almost at epidemic proportions. They estimate that up to 4 million Americans may have had an alien abduction experience, as they believe. And then you've really got to wonder, why is the nature of it so deceptive? You know, if they're really here to help us, as some of these contacts claim, you know, why do they go around acting deceptively? Why do they stealthily abduct people in the middle of the night? And, you know, when I say it was confronting, there was some subject matter that was particularly disturbing. You know, people claim they've been taken onto a spaceship and probed in all parts of their bodies. There are sexual encounters. There seems to be some sort of almost ritual abuse that's going on. So you've got to ask, why would advanced, you know, evolved creatures, you know, kidnap people in the middle of the night and do these horrible things to them, and yet say, you know, we're here to help you evolve? And it's interesting that, you know, we'd like to apply, if you like, a scientific tag to it. But quite simply, it seems that these creatures claim that they fly millions of light years across the universe to basically deny the Bible, Christianity, and teach us almost New Age beliefs.
I'm from Venus.
I don't think anybody's going to believe that you or anybody else could be from Venus. Could you explain to us how you could be when everybody knows it's uninhabitable?
They think it's uninhabitable because it is not inhabitable by physical life forms. We have bodies of light.
While Leah rambles on with fantastical ideas, she soon compels the audience toward global unity, a message found throughout the New Age movement.
And what occurs here on this planet will affect the rest of the universe. Can you, with all of your different ideas, all of your different races, come together as one planet and one people? We have dedicated millennia upon millennia to this idea. The earlier experiments with Pan and Lemuria and Atlantis were not successful. But this one will be.
Why would extraterrestrials fly millions of light years to deny Christianity, support the occult, and lie about things that we know are true? Why would they purposely deceive their contacts? That in the old days they were from Mars, Jupiter. Well, we've been there and tested and looked, and no alien races on those planets. So now they're from further off when we can't test their claims. But there's a fundamental problem with that. If they're from Sirius, Zeta Reticuli, or the Pleiades, and they're all claiming they're humankind's creators, they can't all be right. They can't all be telling the truth. So either there's only two possibilities: they're all wrong, or only one of them is correct. But if only one of them is correct, it means everybody else is lying. So how do you discern which one's telling the truth or not? I mean, just on the premise of logic, it gets very, very suspect. One of the ways you can start to get people to doubt is the things that they have shown. You know, as you saw in the movie, all of these secular researchers saying they're deceptive, they lie to people, they're deceptive, they lie to people. But people never questioned it during the experience. It's only after when you say, were you told this? Were you told this? And they go, yeah. I said, but that's not true. And that's not true. Doesn't that make you a bit suspicious? I've met literally hundreds of people who've had this one, and that they're lying in bed and they see a black cloud or entity in the room, and it moves or hovers, and they lose control of their voice and they're paralyzed. The skeptics try to, you know, explain it away as sleep paralysis. And people call on the name of Jesus, for example, and even something like that stops. And I myself had that same experience, and I haven't told many people this, as a baby Christian. I think I'd been saved a matter of days. I didn't know anything about spiritual warfare. And I'm lying in my room and I had this experience, but I was so excited about my newfound faith, I managed to squeeze the words out, Jesus, help me. And I was being pressed against the bed and choked, and it stopped in an instant. We have testimony after testimony after testimony. And Guy Malone, a researcher in Roswell, New Mexico, he says, well, think about it. If these really are advanced entities flying millions of years across space with that type of technology, why would they be frightened of the name of Jesus, a supposedly deceased religious figure? Joe Jordan, who's catalogued over 400 cases now, has recently, if you like, been promoted. He lives in South Korea as the national director for MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, the world's largest UFO investigative group. He, as a non-believer, first stumbled upon this. And he said, so what is it about Christians that aliens don't like? That was what he thought. And then he realized, like all other researchers who've come to study it, and if they're open enough to take the evidence for what it was, they realize they're not dealing with aliens, they're dealing with spirit beings. And he said he came to understand that the Bible was the only thing that it could explain the spirit realm adequately. Only permanent solution is the authority of the Creator. Because if we are talking about fallen angels, deceptive spirit beings, who created them? You know, the Creator of the universe created everything. He's the only one that obviously can have authority over those beings. We're all looking for meaning and purpose in this world. And if, you know, if an alien's traveled millions of light years across the universe, and I'm not making light of this, but he's come into your room and he says, and I've chosen you, I love you, you're special, you've suddenly found meaning and purpose in life. And that's why it alters people. And that's why often they don't question the experience. They are not benevolent aliens visiting us from a galaxy far, far away. They are deceptive, supernatural entities emanating from another dimension. Any serious expert will tell you that these are what they would describe as interdimensional beings. John Mack, in fact, a Harvard former professor of psychiatry at Harvard University, says that these were beings that should have stayed in the spirit realm. He used that term, that have crossed over into ours, and he kind of described them as having an intervention with humans or something like that. So that's called the interdimensional hypothesis. It's a physical realm that has the ability to manifest in our limited realm. Maybe can deceive our eyes, it's very powerful. And of course, if that's the case, as I've described, they can physically do things to people.
In a more disturbing trend, abductees describe being subjected to cruel and shocking experiments.
They were doing something to my ear. My brain was jammed, and I couldn't function. It was maybe 6 or 8 inches long. It was a cylinder type thing. It was like a drill.
What we find is that it is illusory in nature. This is going to be hard for people to accept. Under a state of hypnosis, memories can be given to you that when you are awakened from that hypnotic state, you cannot distinguish between fact or fantasy. I've seen it demonstrated. For example, they hypnotized a woman and they said, when you were a child, A, B, C happened to you. And then they woke her up. And even in that just few minutes, her imagination, because it was implanted in the subconscious realm, she's already incorporated as a real event. And she will even add to that event and to make it fit, to accommodate it. And even when they told her and said, actually, it didn't really happen to you, we just implanted that a few minutes ago, she goes, no, you didn't. No, that really happened to me. So the big key, I mentioned Bud Hopkins before, is when people have this alleged alien abduction experience, or they're driving their car and they see a light, that's the last thing they remember. And it's something called missing time. Missing time. So they wake up hours later and they look at the dashboard clock in the car and they saw the light at 11 p.m. and it's now 3 a.m. in the morning, and they have no conscious recollection of where that 4 hours went. So they go off to, because the last thing they saw is a UFO or an alien, they think, in their room, they go off to one of these UFO research centers and they get hypnotically regressed. And under hypnosis, they recount allegedly being taken on board a spaceship and all of these events because they were consciously told to forget of them. There's a second problem. Sometimes hypnotists can ask leading questions while you're in a hypnotic state that also can create that as well. And a great exponent of this, in case people think I'm making it up, I mean, this is done for entertainment. On YouTube, people go and watch Derren Brown, a very famous British entertainer, D-E-R-R-E-N, and he actually hypnotizes people. And we're not talking about the watch waving going to sleep. That's all stage entertainment. But he can actually inlay embedded commands and get people to do things that would naturally be against their will. And in one episode, movie-length episode called Assassin, he actually trained a guy through hypnotic suggestion to assassinate the British actor Stephen Fry on stage. And when he heard a bell and a woman walked in front of him in a polka dot dress, the case was there. He picked up the gun, it was blanks, and he shot Stephen Fry on stage. Stephen Fry was part of the scam. He put the gun back in, sat down, and then the bell rang and he woken out of his state. And he's like, what happened? He looked on the stage and Stephen Fry was shot and he was in a panic. And then they said, you shot him. He said, no, I didn't. That'd be ridiculous. And then they showed him the video footage of him actually doing it. If someone talks to you and they tell you lies, then they're a liar. If they tell you stories that you can demonstrably show are not true, then trust is not recommended. And when it comes to the things that these alleged abductees, and of course I don't believe they're abductees, so I prefer to call them experiences, but the things that they're told, we can demonstrably show to be false. And so if they are, again, highly evolved benevolent beings, why are they lying to us? Why are they traumatizing people? Don't they know, if they've been watching us for millions of years, that stealthily abducting you into a spaceship against your will and probing you, and people record incredibly painful experiences they believe they've had? Why don't they know that kind of hurts us? Spirit entities are coming. What they're able to do while people are in a transition state that is going off to sleep and falling out of sleep, the hypnagogic or hypnopompic states, that is when you are most suggestible. You see Derren Brown actually do this in people's bedrooms. And you can implant messages that are not real. And as a result of those, when you awaken, you physically think they're real. This is nothing new, and it's in fact been happening for centuries. So think about a couple of 100 years ago. You know, today, I mean, UFOs, aliens visiting us is pop culture. As I said, it's in sci-fi and every popular TV show. But 200 years ago, people believed in beings called fairies. There were stories of fairies appearing in people's rooms, taking people away to other lands, people having experiences with them, sometimes of a sexual nature, and so on. You go back to the Middle Ages, and there were stories of demons entering people's rooms called the incubus and the succubus, raping men and women, even against their will. So, you know, today, if a fairy stood at the bottom of a being claiming it's a fairy stood at the bottom of someone's bed, you'd say, fairies, that's make-believe. You would doubt your own sanity. 200 years ago, it wasn't a problem because they were popular culture. But today, what's pop culture and people don't question is that little entity at the bottom of their bed is really from a planet far, far away, and they've been chosen and they're special. And so what we're seeing, it's the same old phenomenon that is dressed up in a new, more believable guise or theme that makes it acceptable to the population. They're emanating from the spirit realm, but they're illusory. And what I mean by illusory is in the theme or the meme that they're creating. There can be physical experiences. So the Bible records angels coming into our realm, even God's destroying angel killing the firstborn in Egypt. I mean, how much more dramatic can you get than that? So they can definitely come into our physical realm. Sodom and Gomorrah, they appeared physically, and they talked about the impending destruction that was coming. They looked like men. 3 men sat down with Abraham. Was one of them the pre-incarnate Christ, and a couple of angels? They sat and they ate food. So Stephen, they had physical clothes and they had stomach organs and digestive tracts. And then we hear the angels are described by name as Gabriel, Michael, you know, not to be crass or blunt, but, you know, what defines us as gender, right? It's, you know, it's the organs that we have. So I think when we talk in the spiritual realm, we often think about something that is ethereal and ghostly. I've come to kind of the view that the spirit realm, may be that, but it's not only that. In fact, it could be a physical realm that's of another dimension that can enter into ours.